Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to the Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Programs Lunch and Learn. Today we have with us Miss Katelyn Regal. Ms. Katelyn Regal is from the Defense Contract Audit Agency and is a financial liaison advisor for non-DoD and small businesses. A little bit about Ms. Regal. She is the Operations Audit, she is the Operations Audit Liaison Small Business Coordinator for DCAA, headquartered in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Ms. Regal has been with the agency since 2009 and currently acts as the agency's small business liaison, offering education, guidance, and support to the small and medium businesses working in the federal contracting realm. Ms. Regal also coordinates training through the Small Business Administrators, Apex Accelerators, and federal consulting firms. Ms. Regal graduated from King's College with Bachelor of Science degree in accounting, as well as got her Master's of Business Administration from Strayer University, concentrating in government acquisitions. Ms. Regal, we're so happy to have you here today. Before I turn the floor over to you, I do want to do a couple of housekeeping. Ms. Regal will provide the slides and they will be on the Don OSBP website. The link for that will go in the chat. We do ask that if you have any questions and answers that you use the Q&A feature versus the chat, because the chat will not be monitored for questions. Ms. Regal has also asked that you please hold your questions to the end. If you do have questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A chat. However, we will not be answering them until likely the end of the presentation. So with that being said, Ms. Regal, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mercedes, Amber, and Destiny. Thank you so much for having me and having DCAA here. Really looking forward to this. So thank you. Before we start, I'm going to share my screen. Can I just get a confirmation? We're still good to go with the screen sharing?
Good to go.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. So thanks for joining us today as we dive into DCAA's new hot topic, breaking into GovCon from a DCAA perspective. We created this presentation in response to the 2019 GAO contract financing report and the subsequent defense pricing and contracting finance study, which cited government compliant accounting systems, cost accounting standards, and FAR cost principles as barriers to entry for small businesses looking to enter the defense industrial base. So this presentation, DCAA is going to break down the types of contract awards and the requirements for each, as well as talk about some of the common misconceptions between FAR, CAS, and TINA. So the FAR, or Federal Acquisition Regulation, provides that contract types are grouped into two basic categories for compensation purposes. And this is fixed price, or cost reimbursement contracts. Furthermore, within each of these basic categories, the FAR recognizes a more specified contract type, each differing in degree of performance risk and profit incentive. The government's goal in selecting the proper contract type and compensation agreement is so the contract award will result in a reasonable risk to the contractor and gives the contractor the greatest possible incentive for efficient performance. So the most frequently used types of contracts include fixed price, cost reimbursable, time and material, indefinite delivery contracts, letter contracts, and basic ordering agreements. So for fixed price contracts, they have a preferred status over cost type contracts, and that's for a few reasons. Under cost type contracts, the ultimate cost is inherently more certain. Yes, and I will go over acronyms because I am constantly using acronyms. Welcome to the Department of Defense, right? So I will break down acronyms as well. Under cost type contracts, the ultimate cost is inherently more uncertain. Therefore, there is more risk to the government. So the government does like to award these fixed price contracts. At the same time, various fixed price contract types do differ in performance, risk allocation, and degrees of profit and incentive. So for fixed price contracts, it's exactly as it sounds. These types of contracts are not subject to adjustment based on the contractor's actual cost incurred during the performance phase of the contract. Essentially, the risk of all profits and losses or above and below that fixed price or agreed to price falls directly on the contractor. This type of contract provides for a maximum incentive for contractors to control costs and perform efficiently. This also places minimal administrative burdens on the government and the contractor. Typically, these types of contracts are only subject to audit prior to the contract award when the estimated total of the contract value is $10 million. So fixed price contracts with economic price adjustments, or FPEPA, this type of fixed price contract provides for an upward or downward adjustment or a revision to the contract price based on the occurrence of described contingencies. The basic purpose of this type of contract is to protect the government in case of a decrease, or protecting the contractor in case of an increase in labor and material. This will not cover damages in case of a breach of contract agreement. But this seeks to minimize contingencies subject to that stated adjustment. Again, these all need to be within the contract terms at the time of award. All of these need to be agreed to and stated clearly within the terms of the contract. For a buying command to award a FPEPA, there must be serious doubts concerning the stability of the market or labor conditions. FAR recognizes three general types of fixed price contracts with EPAs: an adjustment based on catalog or market prices established within the contract, an adjustment based on the cost of labor or material that the contractor actually experiences during the contract performance, or an adjustment based upon cost indices of labor and material that are specifically identified within the terms of the contract. And that's going to be a common theme that I'm talking about throughout the course of this presentation: contract terms. Cost reimbursable or cost type contracts. These types of contracts are suitable for use only when uncertainties involved in the contract performance do not allow for anticipated costs to be estimated with specific accuracy. Another great example of awarding a cost type contract is when there is a new type of procurement and the performance may be difficult to forecast. Therefore, until a solid contracting history can be established for a fixed price contract, the best route to go is that cost type award. A cost type contract may employ more open-ended specifications than a fixed price contract would. So there are generally three different types of contract, cost reimbursable contracts. The cost plus incentive fee, or CPIF. This is a cost type contract with an initially negotiated profit that can be adjusted later by a contractual formula, which is based on the relationship of total allowable cost to the total target cost. These contracts are appropriate for use in development and test acquisitions, where the contractor can be appropriately motivated to manage its cost effectively. CPIF contracts will state a target cost and a target fee with stated minimums and maximums, and then the fee adjustment formulas. Again, all included for the contract award and within the terms of the contract. Cost plus award fee, or CPAF, is a cost type contract that provides for a base fee fixed at the time of the inception of the contract plus an award fee. The amount of the award fee is based on the government unilateral evaluation of the contractor's performance at stated intervals. In this respect, the contractor is motivated through the award fee to seek excellence in such areas such as quality, timeliness, and cost-effective management. These types of contract awards are often more for service-based contracts. Last but not least is the cost plus fixed fee or CPFF contract award. So these cost type contract awards are provide for payment of a negotiated fee, which is fixed at the inception of the contract. Fee will not vary based on contract performance, but may vary based on actual cost of the performance. CPFFs are great for a variety of reasons, such as research, preliminary exploration, testing, development, studies. Wherever there is an unknown level of effort, CPFFs are usually the way to go for a contract award. CPFFs are not appropriate for award for major defense system where the government has established a reasonably firm performance objective and schedule. So as far as prohibitions and limitations, the government really steers clear of that PPC or cost plus percentage of contracts. There are statutory and regulatory prohibitions against this type of contracting. In this type of contracting, the government is obligated to pay for the contractor's cost, undetermined at the time of the contract award, and what is to be incurred in the future, plus profit based on a percentage of unknown future costs. So as you can see that this type of contract award gives no incentive or motivation for contractors to keep their expenses down, because not only are we not monitoring and keeping those expenses down, but your profit is going up as you're not monitoring your expenses. So you can see how that's a big no-no. Other limitations include before using cost type contracts, the procuring agency must conclude that the contractor's accounting system is adequate for determining applicable cost and that adequate government surveillance will be available to monitor the contractor's performance. So all cost reimbursement contracts are unfixed at the time of the award, and final costs are established after the contractor has incurred them. Therefore, a cost reimbursement contract will contain the following standards, and that is limitation of costs and limitation of funds. This is to ensure that contractors are properly monitoring the expenditures and ensuring that they stay within the funded amounts to ensure proper monitoring. Time and material contracts. This is another type of cost type award with T&M or time and material contracts. So with T&M contracts, the contractor will provide services for a specific period of performance at fixed hourly rates for various labor categories and qualifications set forth within the terms of the contract. And again, you're going to hear me saying terms of the contract a lot. This is why it is so important for contractors to brief your contracts, get to know the ins and outs and all of those nitty-gritty details within the terms of the contract. This is to make sure that you guys are in compliance with the terms of the contract. And it just gives you a leg up for billing and monitoring and all of that good stuff. Additionally, the contractor is reimbursed for other direct contract costs such as material overhead and ODCs. And these are contracts that are a level of effort or LOE. When it comes to a contract award, T&M contracts are not particularly favored since there is really no incentive for contractors to monitor labor hours and increase their efficiencies. Additionally, this is a type of contract where the government must monitor the labor hours incurred to ensure efficiency. So again, that's incurring extra administrative oversight that oftentimes everybody, government and contractor alike, do not have as far as monitoring. So labor hours, another type of cost reimbursable or T&M contract, similar to the T&M, just no materials, just labor services. And again, same clauses and provisions apply. Other types of contracts: indefinite delivery contracts. FAR describes 3 types of indefinite delivery contracts where government reserves the right after base contract award to issue orders for specified services or supplies in a particular amount at a particular time and place specified in the base contract award terms. Labeled as indefinite because the exact amount needed at the time of the contract award in the base is unknown. An advantage of this type of contract award is that the government can maintain their stocks at minimum levels and have direct shipment to their users. Additionally, because there is a base contract award for a specific period of time, there is less administrative burden on government resources. Note that a delivery order contract means that a contract for supplies and a task it's a contract for supplies, and a task order contract is a contract for services. So there are 3 types there, and that is definite quantity, requirements, and indefinite quantity. Definite quantity it's for a fixed period of time. No limits on the amount of orders that the government can place. And this is only used when the government knows the exact amount of supplies or services needed during the life of the contract. However, the timing and frequency is unknown at the time of the award. For requirements contract, wherein the agency agrees to buy all of the actual purchase requirements for designated supplies or services from a particular supplier, and the supplier agrees to fill the agency's needs during the period under contract. The agency is not required to order a specific amount or minimum. Indefinite quantity contracts provides for an indefinite quantity to be ordered during the contract's period of performance. These types of contract awards do not include a stated minimum order that the government must purchase. Letter contracts are a written preliminary contractual instrument that authorizes the contractor to commence performance immediately. This is essentially lets the contractor move on to starting the required services for fulfilling the supplies, and lets them know the details that will let them know that the details will be settled at a later time. These are literally in the form of letters with attachments that should contain the basic elements of a contract. And the basic ordering agreements, or BOAs, this is a written agreement between parties, but not a contract. This agreement contemplates separate future contracts to be awarded thereafter. A BOA contains a description as specific as possible for goods and services to be ordered. It will also contain methods of pricing, issuing, and delivering future orders. So what are the pros and cons of fixed price contracts? So as far as pros go, certainty of cost, right? They're fixed price. Let's say you have a period of performance of 5 years. You know what your cost and your expenses are going to be for those 5 years. That is going to help you budget and get those rates down as far as labor rates and your indirect rates, and that set timeline, right? So this is predictability, at least for the next 3 to 5 years, however your contracts are structured. The cons to a fixed price contract, on the other hand, you're looking at possible extra margins, a rigid process, right? It's fixed, can't really steer from the plan. Not recommended for mid to large scale projects because of that rigidity, and false certainty of costs. So this is where most risk is really on the contractor. You have a risk to go over those budgets, over that fixed price amount, and then you're at a loss when it comes to your profits. The risk for the government is prior to the contract award, prior to that negotiation. Once they lock it in, they are locked in. Pros and cons for cost type contracts. So advantages, contractor gets flexibility. The risk is minimized for you because costs are your costs. You should be monitoring your costs. You should be keeping costs down. But, you know, with this unknown economic climate, if costs go up, you're going to burn through the funding faster, but they are covered. So it just depends at that point whether you need to request more funding if that's going to get approved or not. So there's much more flexibility when it comes to that. Contractor qualifications. So the FAR states that a contractor must be qualified and responsible prospective contractor criteria, adequate financial resources, ability to comply with a required or proposed delivery, satisfactory performance record. All of these things are necessary for small businesses to enter into government contracts. Prior to a contractor's first cost type contract award, there are a few things that need to be taken place. We need to establish that contractors have an adequate accounting system, and that's where DCAA comes in. So FAR 242-7502, contractors receiving cost reimbursement, incentive or the T&Ms and the labor hours, or fixed price contracts that provide for progress payments shall maintain an adequate accounting system. Small businesses cannot request a pre-award accounting system. This needs to be requested by the buying command, either the PCO or the contracting officer. And prior to the contracting officer requesting DCAA to perform this audit, this pre-award accounting system audit, contractors need to complete a checklist and assertion of their accounting system. It goes through all of the SF 1408 criteria, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but does my accounting system meet the requirements? Yes or no, and why? And it goes through each of those steps. It's a 10-page document, and everybody will be receiving this presentation, and I do have the PDFs of it's called the assertion, or we like to call it the narrative. This is our adequacy checklist. And the SF 1408 itself, both PDFs are embedded in the presentation for your viewing and resource needs. So pre-award accounting system audit objectives. So what DCAA is doing, we are looking at the design of the accounting system. Is it acceptable for that prospective cost type or cost reimbursable award? Can the contractor's accounting system accumulate and segregate costs under those federal cost type contracts? Is the contractor's accounting system in operation, or is it set up and not in operation? And both of those are acceptable. We just need to look at the design and the how contractors have their system set up. Not only the software, but also the internal controls, the policies and procedures, how you guys are assigning and identifying your costs. Is it direct? Is it indirect? All of those criteria go into our audits. And again, we're looking, the audit program is designed to evaluate the criterion within the SF 1408. And this is the point where I like to show DCAA's Directory of Audit Programs. So when it is embedded in here, but it's also on our public website. And it's 17740 is the DCAA internal code assignment number for pre-award accounting system audits. And with that, you're able to look at what goes into our risk assessment. What steps are we performing throughout the performance phase of this audit? Does the pre-award now include cybersecurity? It does not. That is not a current step of the audit program. So let's look at what defines an accounting system and what makes it acceptable. And that is with DFARS, or the Defense Supplement to FAR, and FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So DFARS 252, 242, 7006 Accounting system means the contractor's system or systems for accounting methods, procedures, and controls established to gather, record, classify, analyze, summarize, interpret, and present accurate and timely financial data for reporting is in compliance with applicable laws, regulations, and management decisions. So it may include subsystems, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit too, with billing and labor. There is so much more, again, outside of whatever software you're using. For example, QuickBooks. You could have, Joe Defense, small business contractor down the street has QuickBooks. He has an approved accounting system report from DCAA for QuickBooks. I'm using QuickBooks, so that must mean I have an acceptable accounting system, right? Far from it. All of the how you gather, record, classify, analyze, and interpret, all of that is taken into account. Your internal controls, your policies and procedures, how costs flow through that software, everybody handles that differently. So that's what we take into account when we perform our audit procedures. Again, the second bullet there complies with the applicable laws and regulations. We're making sure that the cost data from your accounting system, those reports that you generate, the invoices that you generate, that it's reliable and that it has sound support behind those reports and invoices. Risk of misallocation and mischarging is low or minimized, and contract allocation and charging is consistent with your billing procedures. So how can a small business prepare for a pre-award accounting system audit? Be sure your pre-award accounting system survey narrative, that's that checklist that we were talking about before, is detailed and provides sufficient explanation. We're going to go through your responses with that explanation, and we're going to see, are you able to sustain and support the audit? If you're not able to support the audit, if you're not ready to support an audit, we can't move forward with the audit. So we're really looking at that narrative and seeing how you feel that you meet that SF 1408 criteria. Compile a list of recent or relevant audit history, whether it's with DCAA or if it's with your external auditors. Maybe you perform internal audits. Pull those results together. If you had any non-compliances or findings, what did you do to correct that? If applicable, be ready to explain those corrective actions. Again, the steps you took to correct it. Show me how it's corrected. Show me an example of the right way to do things versus what was found. Provide all relevant accounting system policies and procedures and be ready to explain them. Walk me through your process. Show me how you record time. How does that flow through your system, including the output of the invoices? Does it make sense? Adequate support and documentation. And coming from an auditor's perspective, I cannot preach this anymore, is just support. Document all of your procedures. Let's talk about your indirect rates, right? How do you identify direct versus indirect costs? What are your indirect rates? What comprises your pool? What comprises your base? How are you calculating your rates? Let's talk about all of that and make sure it's documented. We're going to go through this when we perform our risk assessment, but this is just to show how your business can prepare for an audit. So again, some more examples. And again, this goes over the criteria of a 1408 in a little bit more detail. Can you generate basic financial reports, your trial balance, your general ledger, your job cost ledger, how you identify and segregate costs, how often you post to your books of account and identify and handle unallowable costs? That's a big thing with government contracting, is ensuring, we all incur unallowable costs, but how are you handling them and how are you ensuring that you're not billing them to the government? Examples of non-compliances that we've historically found when performing these accounting system audits: failure to properly segregate those costs, maybe double counting labor if you're charging it both direct and indirect. We've seen that quite often. The lack of routine posting to books of account, improper timekeeping, failure to exclude unallowable costs. All of these instances where we have found non-compliances. When we do perform an accounting system audit and we do find non-compliances, we discuss them with you, and they are included in our report as a statement of conditions and recommendations. So this is where we identify our finding, how we found it, how it impacts the government, and then we'll ask you to comment on it and how you plan to fix it. Most of the time when we do have a statement of conditions and recommendations, most of the time our report will say, a follow-up in 6 months to see if these issues have been taken care of or these non-compliances have been corrected. Contractor labor floor checks. This is if you have a cost reimbursable type of contract award and you are currently performing on them. With that being said, we have to check in from time to time, depending on the materiality and risk of the labor with your company and what you're doing on your contracts, to see the current labor charging and cost allocation practices. Does it make sense? Is it accurate? Are the employees doing what they say they're doing? Are there actual employees? We found that with prior findings, prior non-compliances, is that the contractor is charging for employees that don't even exist. So we have seen that before. Again, the objective of these types of audits are to test the contractor's compliance with timekeeping internal controls and procedures and the reliability of your employees' timekeeping records. There's that DFARS reference again. You'll find a lot of definitions and clarity with DFARS references like this. 252, 242, 7006 defines timekeeping system as requires that a timekeeping system identify employees' labor by intermediate or final cost objectives. So intermediate means indirect. Final cost objectives result in direct charging to the contract. Labor charges must be based on or recorded via paper or electronic time cards. Proper internal controls and approval processes. Again, make sure that they're documented, and then DCAA is going to come in and verify what you're documenting is that you're following your own policies and procedures and that you have the proper approvals within what you're saying that you're doing. So how can a small business prepare for a labor floor check? Always keep an updated list of employees. Identify if they're direct versus indirect. Identify them by location. This will help DCAA hone in on locations, areas of risk, and how we're going to test and our approach to that audit. Labor floor checks are going to be unannounced, so discretion is key. Don't announce. I was on a floor check once where my point of contact escorting me throughout the floors was yelling down the hall, "Hey, DCAA is here for a floor check," and that's just not cool. So ensure your employees are recording their time at least once a day. Ensure that at 10 a.m. you set a reminder to record your day from the day prior. I have constant reminders in my Outlook to record my time, release my timesheet, ensure that my timesheet is properly approved. So if I could do it, you guys can. Ensure you have clearly documented timekeeping and policy procedures. Again, this is key for us to understand how your company works. Every company operates differently. So documenting the process helps us with our audit. And the big hot topic now, work from home. Ensure you have a documented work from home program. Identify a point of contact for employee interviews. So you may be a one-stop, one man, one woman type of company, and you are it. Or maybe you have different locations, different departments. Identify a point of contact for each of those. Again, every company is different, so it's hard to paint examples, but identify a point of contact for these types of audits. CAS so Cost Accounting Standards, or CAS. So what is CAS? And I know this was another type of barrier to entry for government contracting. CAS promotes, regulates and promotes uniformity and consistency in contractor accounting practices. It establishes regulations to require federal contractors and subcontractors as a condition of contracting to disclose in writing the contractor's cost accounting practices, to follow disclosed practices consistently. These standards govern the measurement, assignment, and allocation of costs to federal contracts. Cost accounting standards cover a variety of costs such as depreciation, pension plans, personal compensation, indirect costs, and we're going to see in a little bit all of the CAS standards. They ensure uniformity and consistency. Again, I can't stress that enough in measurement and assignment and allocation. CAS provides criteria on how costs should be measured, assigned, and allocated. But it does not address the allowability of cost. And we're going to get into that in a little bit as well. And common misconception with CAS, it's not a contractor that's CAS covered. It is the contract itself. So, and again, when I first started with DCAA, I often said that too. I was like, oh, this contractor is CAS covered. And no, it is at the contract level. CAS applicability and coverage. This is readily available for, if you just Google the CAS flowchart, applicability flowchart, you can see it's pretty easy to go through and navigate. I'm trying to, hopefully you can see my screen. I'm trying to zoom in here. So start, does the contract or subcontract meet one of the listed CAS exceptions? There are several exceptions we're going to get into in a little bit, and these are the exceptions right here. As you can see, contract or subcontract with a small business, that is a CAS exception. You are exempt from CAS applicability. Sealed bid contract, if prices are set by law. Fixed price contracts or subcontracts awarded on the basis of adequate price competition, if there's adequate competition. Contract or subcontract less than 7.5 million, provided the contractor is not currently performing on any CAS covered contracts. So there are several exemptions here. So if it is contract or subcontract, is exempt from CAS. Pretty cut and dry. If no, you don't meet any of the exemptions, is the current award $7.5 million or more? Or is the business unit currently performing a CAS covered contract or subcontract valued at $7.5 million? No, exempt from CAS. Yes, CAS covered. Okay, Katie, but what about what happens if I am CAS covered? What does that look like? Is the award $50 million or more? No. Did the business unit receive $50 million in CAS covered contracts? No. Has the business unit received a single CAS covered contract of $50 million or more? See, the 7.5 is the trigger, is what I'm trying to get at. Once you have a CAS covered contract where it hits a trigger, you're looking at a modified CAS coverage. CAS 401, 402, 405, and 406. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of those in a little bit. I don't think anybody here is hitting that $50 million mark with small businesses. And if you are, congratulations, you're not considered a small business anymore. If you are hitting the $50 million thresholds, you're looking at full CAS coverage, but we're a ways away from that. So let me pull back my screen here. Whoop, there we go. All right, so there's that SBA 8A certified small business. Again, if you're a small business, exempt from CAS coverage. Modified CAS coverage. So what does that look like? We just talked about that. 401, consistency in estimating, accumulating, and reporting costs. 402, consistency in allowing costs incurred for the same purpose. 405, accounting for unallowable costs. And CAS 406, cost accounting periods. There is overlap, believe it or not, between CAS and GAAP. So there are 19 standards within CAS. However, not all contractors will be subject to all 19 standards. We just established all of that. If you can, you'll get a copy of this. You can see the standards here. There are 10 GAP principles. And where is the overlap? So GAP and CAS are focused on two separate goals. GAP on the business's high-level financial performance, and CAS on allocating costs to individual government contracts. The CAS board generally has complied or is in the process of complying with the administrative and reporting requirements prescribed by Section 820 of the National Defense Authorization Act for FY 2017. And that's the NDAA for those who like the acronyms. To do so, the board is taking steps to follow its statutory prescribed 4-step rulemaking process. So long story short, the overlap between CAS and GAP, as far as cost measurement and assignment for accounting periods, there's an overlap of 7 principles. As far as cost allocation goes, you're looking at overlap of 4 principles. Foundational principles of government contracting, overlap of 4 of them. Complex rules to unique government contracting, 4 principles and standards that are overlapping with each other. There's an overlap of CAS and FAR. So depending on the standard, there is a corresponding FAR clause. So for accounting for unallowable cost, CAS 405, you're looking at FAR 31-201-6. So even as a small business, if you're not getting into government contracting because you don't want to be CAS compliant, that shouldn't be a barrier to entry for you, is what we're trying to say, because you still need to adhere to the FAR. FAR has leverage as well when it comes to government contracting. FAR and CAS, the leverage is there for what everybody needs to adhere to with the standards. Truthful cost or pricing data, formerly known as Truth in Negotiations or TINA. And I, from here on out, will always call it TINA. It's just easier to say. So TINA's primary purpose is to ensure that the government is placed on equal footing with the contractor with respect to cost or pricing data to support the proposed price. Using the contractor's cost or pricing data will enable the government to determine whether the price is fair and reasonable. Those are 2 terms that DCAA uses quite often, is fair and reasonable. And that's what we establish when we do our pricing proposals and the forward pricing audits. The current threshold for TINA is any contract over $2 million, unless the contractor is exempt from certifying their own cost or pricing data. So what is the contractor certifying, right? What am I certifying to as a small business? If I don't meet any of the exceptions, and that is that your current cost and pricing data, when you submit it, is current, accurate, and complete. So exemptions to TINA or certifying the cost and pricing data, adequate price competition, commercial items or services, prices set by law or regulation. An example of this would be Ability One. If we have any nonprofit Ability One contractors in here, those are set by the procurement list is set by law or regulation, so that would be exempt. A waiver or modifying a contract or subcontract for commercial items. Overlap of TINA and CAS, they overlap each other. So the Federal Acquisition Regulation, or FAR, is the primary regulation for use by all executive agencies in their acquisition of supplies and services with appropriated funds. The FAR also contains standard solicitation provisions and contract clauses and the various agency FAR supplements. Its purpose is to ensure pricing procedures are standard, consistent, and conducted in fair and impartial manner. So TINA is to ensure the government, again, is on that equal footing for anything over $2 million for current, accurate, and complete cost and pricing data. And again, with the CAS to achieve that uniformity and consistency. This is DCAA Internet Resources, and this is a great tool to have if you have time to go to our website and check out. There's the audit process overview, information for contractors manual. It is a 99-page PDF document, and I call it my little DCAA Bible. There is so much information there in the PDF document. You hit Control F, and you're able to search within that document anything you want, anything from SF 1408, pre-award accounting system, direct cost, indirect costs. Those are just some examples. Timekeeping, labor. How does that all look? So you're able to read up on that more and use that at your leisure when you can't attend sessions like this. Directory of our audit programs is there. DCAA likes to be transparent. There should be no surprises. Checklist and tools, adequacy checklist. We talked about that pre-award accounting system, the cost pricing proposal. All of the checklists are there, so you should know what is required of you as a contractor when you're submitting your proposals, your pre-award accounting system certifications, and your incur cost submissions. Again, transparency is key, right? Frequently asked questions from DCAA that we get all the time. Can I get an approved accounting system? No, there is no such thing as an approved DCAA approved government accounting system. Doesn't happen. How do I request a DCAA audit of my accounting system? Short answer is you cannot. DCAA performs these audits at the request of our buying commands. Those are our customers, and that's who we serve as a agency under the Department of Defense. And is QuickBooks or any other accounting software application acceptable system for federal contracting? Well, it depends. Depends on how you're using it. It depends on, does it make sense? Are you hitting all of the SF 1408 criteria? So there is no one-stop shop. There is no canned answer, unfortunately. It's all in how you use it. And that's why we perform our audits based on contractor and not by system. This is a link to our survey. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if I'm doing a good job. It goes to my upper management, so I don't see them. But let me know if there's anything I can improve upon, if there's anything you want to hear, anything you thought I did well or not well. The good, the bad, the ugly, we want to hear it. So please let us know how we're doing. And that's it. This is my contact information. My phone number, my email is all there. I'm a part of the operations division within DCAA, so I report to our headquarters in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. I sit outside of Philadelphia in the King of Prussia area, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. But yeah, all my information is here. Please give me a shout if you have any questions or want me to walk you through anything. Otherwise, we have about 12 minutes left. I'm going to open the floor for any questions.
Katelyn, thank you so much for that informative presentation. I'm sure our audience learned a lot, as I learned a few new tips and tools as well. So the first question, is anticipatory cost letters still in use?
Oh, let me go back and reread that. Is the anticipatory cost? I'm not sure. I think that's more on the contracting side and not the auditing side. I've never heard of that before, so I cannot answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Where
do BAAs fit into the mix? So I guess, you know, you talked about, so I think it sounds like you talked about a lot of contracting types. And so I want to let the audience know, she talked more about contracting types, not the types of contracts. So anticipatory cost is a type of contract, BAAs are a type of contract. Do you have a little information on kind of how the BAAs fit into it?
If that person can define again with the acronym, so BAA.
Oh, broad agency announcement.
Oh yeah, no, that does make sense. I thought maybe that was a typo for BOAs. Broad agency announcement. We don't use those. I haven't worked with those, so I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. So broad agency announcements typically are you kind of get white papers. That's when like the white papers and things come in. So but from DCAA's perspective, they are not involved in the BAA process.
We are not. We are not.
Okay, does the pre-award audit now include cyber? I think you answered that during the presentation, but just want to.
Yeah, we did. It does not include anything with cybersecurity. May pop up in the future. It is a hot topic.
Will it eventually, once or if CMMC becomes official, will it? Do you guys know? Have you had that conversation?
I have not been. That's above my pay grade.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So yeah, no, but it would make sense because that is a requirement. So I could see that being incorporated into our audit program, but I'm not going to answer officially for DCAA though.
Okay. Are indirect employees required to submit time cards?
Yes.
Okay.
All employees are required to submit time cards. From direct, indirect, the CEO, everybody should be tracking their time and everybody is subject to audit.
Okay. Does DCAA offer a basic training on accounting for non-financial managers oriented to government requirements?
So we do have accounting system requirement training. A lot of that is offered through the Apex accelerators or SBA. Be patient because we are growing this program, but if you check with your local Apex, if it's not currently being offered, request it and they can reach out to DCAA. We could get that going as far as a webinar similar to this, go through the ins and outs of the SF 1408 and all of the requirements of that and what DCAA does during those audits.
Does daily timekeeping apply to the C-suite?
I am not familiar with C-suite, so I cannot answer that. I believe that is a type of timekeeping system within your accounting system. But yes, no matter the software or type of tracking that you're using, daily timekeeping is a requirement with cost type contracts.
Okay, perfect. So I think you mentioned something about most small businesses not being over 50 million. I guess somebody said they are, or they're still small business, but I guess a couple of their NAICS codes were over. So, okay.
Yeah, and so every situation is different, right? But generally speaking, yeah.
I would like to echo this, but somebody says, no question, this is a very informative presentation, very informative. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
How do I request a capabilities briefing? What products or services does DCAA buy?
We do not buy. We are strictly just providing audit and financial advisory services to the procurement community. So yeah, that is often a misconception of DCAA as well. We do not read or meet with anybody regarding capability statements or procurement.
Okay, it looks like we had something come in the chat. Does DCAA issue low risk memos for low dollar amount contracts?
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second. For incurred costs, so for cost type contracts, you have to provide an incurred cost submission, and that is everything that you have incurred in the prior year. So let's say your fiscal year ends December 31st, 2023. You have 6 months to provide your incurred cost submission, and we do have training on this as well. It might be another topic that Mercedes and Amber and Destiny and I want to tackle together, but it's basically a receipt of what you've incurred throughout the year. And DCAA, depending on the dollar value, the materiality, and the risk behind that, may deem it low risk. So if it is low risk, it goes into a low risk sample pool. So even if it is low dollar, you're looking at possible audit because it was randomly selected for audit. Now, if it is not randomly selected for audit, we do close it out with a low risk memo. And that is typically done within 6 months of the submitting the incurred cost submission.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we had a clarification from one of the questions that we asked. So we asked about the timekeeping being necessary in C-suites. I was informed that C-suites equal executive. So the real question that they're asking is timekeeping also required for super senior level executives?
Yes, it is. Nobody is above the law. So yes, you should be monitoring your time, right? Because even if you're indirect and that's super senior executive, your time is going to be calculated within an indirect rate. So you're still going to be spreading those indirect costs out on those direct allocation basis. So yes, you need to be monitoring your time. You need to be accounting for your time. You, me, everybody, we got to do timesheets, right? So
okay, looks like we have one final question. Does DCAA have any suggestions for good accounting systems or cybersecurity or programs that are not easily hacked? So in your time of, reviewing different accounting systems, have you found something that seems to kind of work best or better, especially with government contracting?
So DCAA cannot recommend any sort of accounting system. And why? Because we maintain that independent audit opinion. So if I were to go out and say, hey, everybody, QuickBooks works great, you should go out and implement it and do it and spend all of this money to have that adequate accounting system, and you fail an audit or something goes on where you can't, you're missing the mark on those cost type contracts. Well, Katie from DCAA said, and unfortunately, that's not how we operate. So we need to maintain our autonomy and our independence when it comes to those audits. So I would love to say yes and no in my experience, what has worked and what hasn't, but another time and place.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that even super senior supervisors have to keep their time. I guess someone's going to take that and said, Katie said you have to do it. And Katie will stand by that. So with that being said, I do not believe we have any other questions. So I want to say thank you so much, Katelyn, Ms. Regal, for your time today and the information that you shared. It was very informative, and I know that our audience gained a lot. As a reminder, everyone, the PowerPoint slides will be available on the website. The link to the Don OSBP website was put in the chat at the beginning. We look forward to you coming to another Lunch and Learn. That will also be at the link that was provided at the beginning. Thank you so much for attending, and have a wonderful and safe day. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.